Most of us love animals, but some people go above and beyond to save their lives, often putting their own in harm's way. When a couple came across a small sussex squirming in the middle of the road, they were shocked. The little animal was unable to get out of his too small hole, and had made himself a sitting duck in the middle of the dirt road. It's possible the little critter had gotten too chubby for his burrow, though it's also probable the entrance to his tunnel had become flattened under the wheels of passing cars. The couple grabbed a towel and set about pulling the little squirmer out of his tunnel. The sussex was understandably annoyed at being touched by a human, and made his displeasure apparent. However, once he was pulled loose, the little guy ran happily into the brush. If he was left without any assistance, he would have most definitely been a target for a predator. It's nice to think that the couple stopped to help this animal that was certainly in distress. Canadian fisherman was cruising in a boat near Nanu's Bay, British Columbia, when he spotted a young bald eagle floundering on the surface of the water. Although bald eagles are known to be quite capable swimmers, this particular bird appeared unable to take flight again. As the fishermen began to think of how they might try to help, the bird used his wings to inch closer to the vessel. However, before they had the chance to grab their net, the bird drifted away again, so they powered up the engine to move closer. After getting within an inch, the fishermen scooped up the bird from the water. The bald eagle, though shaken and cold, did not appear to be visibly injured. Once aboard, the bird stretched his wings to warm himself, keeping a watchful but tolerant eye on the fishermen as they filmed and continued to make conversation with him. The bald eagle was then picked up by Wildlife Rescue and transported to the Orphaned Wildlife Rehabilitation Society to be treated. Veterinarian Diane Lee said the bald eagle, probably around 3 years old, does not appear to have any injuries to his wings. She said the fact he was stranded at sea was odd. Lee says that accidental poisoning is a likely factor, noting that birds can fall ill after ingesting animals that may have come into contact with poison, used by farmers to keep pests at bay. When the fishermen got him onto the boat, there wasn't any fishing line tangled around him, and when he came in there wasn't any clear break, but he wasn't eating food very well, so it's suspected there might be something in him. After having x-rays taken, this magnificent bird recovered well. It's hard to say with certainty that it was an act of human cruelty that put this frightened little chihuahua atop a medium barrier on a busy California freeway, but how he was delivered to safety is an example of quite the opposite. It was rush hour when a CHP motorcycle officer finally spotted the tiny dog cowering in the centre divide, in real danger of being struck by a vehicle if he dared venture off his narrow perch. At first the chihuahua wasn't eager to be moved, but the caring officer was able to win his trust by offering him some food, after which he allowed himself to be picked up and brought back to safety. Sadly, the officer says that the animal was probably abandoned there, left to fend for himself by the neglectful owner. As sad as it sounds, it actually happens pretty often. Animal Control says that the little dog is now doing well. Since the story first broke, several people have already called to ask about adopting him. Whenever a baby elephant gets rescued, it's a good thing. When he's accompanied by 2 other babies in need of a new home, it's triple good news. Recently, rescuers from the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya received a report about a young elephant calf that had been rescued after falling down a well in the remote village of the Luga region. The Milgis Trust scouts attempted to reunite him with the herd, but sadly this did not succeed, and they were called out to rescue little Woz, the baby elephant. He was named after the area where he was rescued. The rescuers quickly set out to retrieve the calf, and were met with 2 other unexpected orphans, 2 tiny ostriches. The 3 rescues arrived at the nursery safely. All young elephants are extremely fragile, not least when they've experienced being separated from their mother, and Woz is currently being cared for with the specialist care he needs. Woz will likely see the wild again. After regaining his strength for a few years in the nursery, he will be slowly introduced to the wild, along with the other elephants he's living with now. So far this year, hundreds of rhinos have been killed at the hands of poachers in South Africa. But for every bad story there is a good one. A young rhino calf was found wandering alone along a roadside in South Africa's Kruger National Park earlier this year, likely left orphaned after poachers killed her mother. But despite the heartbreak she suffered at the hands of humans, her rescue is proof of humanity's capacity for compassion. After spotting the confused calf, passing motorists leapt into action, offering her water while they waited by her side for officials from Care for Wild Africa to take her to a rehabilitation centre, where she could be given the care she needed. As the group waited for park rangers to arrive to the scene, they poured water to cool the young rhino's baking skin. They had to reassure the baby rhino that she would be alright, noting that despite the horrible circumstances that led up to that moment, the animal still seemed to trust them. Once the officials arrived, they asked the individuals what happened, but not knowing much, they told the park officials they found her wandering the road. Carers have taken the young rhino to be looked after. Her caretakers report that she is doing extremely well, but given the rhino's young age, there is a chance she'll never return to the wild. While rescuing a stray dog or cat off the street can seem like a small gesture of kindness that anyone can do on their own, when it comes to saving much larger animals, sometimes it takes an army to help save the day. So when a baby whale weighing more than 7 tons found itself washed ashore along a beach in Brazil, more than 300 volunteers came to lend a helping hand. The poor whale was discovered in the early afternoon near Rio de Janeiro. As the whale's chance of survival grew slimmer, more and more people reached out to help. A human chain of people passed buckets of water to help keep the whale alive. A trench was also dug out to help the animal make its way back to sea. However, when none of these efforts worked out, it was the whale's own determination to push itself further out to sea that eventually led the animal back to safety. Hundreds of people could be heard in the water and along the shoreline cheering on their rescue efforts, knowing that they'd help play a part in reuniting the whale with the sea. It really does show that in times of need, humans can come together and achieve wonders. These 5-week-old kittens were found with their mum, a feral cat, living inside the drum of a washing machine left in a garden belonging to a florist. At first, Charity, the Mayhew Animal Home, were alerted to just 4 of the kittens, and their mum when a member of staff working at the florist spotted the family emerging from the machine. An animal welfare officer said, "A member of staff at the florist called us after they spotted 4 kittens and their mum climbing out of the washing machine. When kittens get around 5 weeks old, they start to move about, and this is when they were spotted by the lady. She scooped them up and put them in a box, ready for us to collect when we arrived at the florist. When we arrived, we collected the kittens and did a thorough check of the washing machine and garden to make sure we found all of the family. We assumed we had when we couldn't find any others. We brought all 4 kittens back to our home where they were settled into a comfy and warm kitten cabin, and were given a thorough health check by our vet team. Thankfully they were all in good condition and were healthy weights." Just a few weeks later, the animal welfare officers received another call from the staff at the florist, saying they'd spotted another kitten near the washing machine. The officers immediately went to collect the additional kitten, and took her back to the rescue centre where she could be settled into a comfy kitten cabin, and given vet checks. Thankfully she was in good condition and was a healthy weight. All 5 kittens were put on foster where they could be properly socialised and given the chance to get used to a living home environment, before they were ready to find homes of their own. Once they were old enough, all 5 kittens were neutered and vaccinated and were ready to make a fresh clean start in a loving home. Already 2 of the kittens have ended up in a loving home together. A female cat has been saved from being abandoned and giving birth to a litter of 5 kittens on the street thanks to the kind-hearted and goodwill of a local resident and the Mayhew Animal Home. Mrs. Broom discovered the 2-year-old black and white cat sitting in her front garden. At first she thought it was her neighbour's cat, but when she didn't move or return home in the evenings, she knew this feline was different. On close inspection, she noticed the cat, later named Sweetie, had a rounded stomach, and thought she might have been pregnant. She knocked on the neighbours' doors and searched the local area for lost posters, but had no luck. The kind-hearted Londoner gave Sweetie food and put together a makeshift bed with blankets and towels in the corner of her shower in the downstairs bathroom. The next day, just before 9 in the morning, she checked on Sweetie and couldn't believe what she'd discovered. An extra feline cuddling up beside her. Sweetie had given birth to one kitten and Mrs. Broom didn't know what to do, so she called her niece for help. By the time she arrived, Sweetie had given birth to a litter of 5 black and white kittens. Soon afterwards, Mrs. Broom called the Mayhew Animal Home for help and advice on what she should do next. The animal welfare officers would normally collect the mum and kittens and take them to the Mayhew Animal Home so they could take care of them. But unfortunately on this occasion there was no room for them. But with advice and information from the charity, and an offer of food and cat supplies, Mrs. Broom was more than happy to look after Sweetie and her 5 kittens. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more countdown videos.